Good morning. Let's talk about growth. We've been talking about, and everyone's talking about, the end of a 9-year cycle, the beginning of a brand new cycle. And if you've been following me for a while, hi, lovely to have you here again. And if this is new to you, I'm Elizabeth Elenor, Make Peace, and I run one group that I run is called Soulmate Attraction Secrets for Curious Women, and I'm the founder of the Ascendance Code. And I want to talk about change today because we have so many things that we're talking about completion of the 9 year. If you've been following me for the last month, then you know that I've been sort of giving little pieces of information ready and preparing for at the end of the month, on the 28th I think it is, we're going to be doing a 9-year vision plan to support you to really create your new future, right, on your highest timeline, quantum leaping into the future so that you're not just in this space of winging it and trying to survive. Because when we're in survival, our nervous system is dysregulated and it's not aligned with your highest potential. And that's where we mostly sit, right? We mostly sit in this space of living in the past to create the future. But what we want to do, and what we've got the ability to do, which is the most important part, is to create. We're actually designed to create. We were born to create. Women have a womb, so we can create life. And in the midst of all of that is growth. We've been talking about completing, what's changed, what are you letting go of, who are you becoming, all of these things. But the elephant in the room is really all about growth, because growth is not something that everyone is comfortable with. And there's a reason for it, because growth is generally uncomfortable. So let's jump straight into it so that we can talk about what it is that's holding us back, the actual truth about growth. Have my lemon water. So the very first thing about growth is it doesn't actually feel expansive at first. Growth does feel wobbly and destabilizing to the system. And there's a reason for that, because the nervous system is based in what's comfortable. Growth actually feels like loss of control. It doesn't feel empowering at all. The nervous system actually sees growth as a threat because it's unfamiliar. Our nervous system wants to stay consistent. It wants familiarity, right? And when you start growing and expanding and being someone different, it's painful to the nervous system. The thing is, if growth was easy and good and felt good, everyone would be doing it, right? Not everyone is willing to grow and expand. Most people want to stay stuck. And it's not so much that they want to be stuck in the pain. It's not a conscious thought. It's more that the nervous system regulates to the pain and would rather the pain than what is in the unknown. When it's unknown to the nervous system, now the whole thing is that the nervous system will do everything it possibly can to stay in safety, even if The safety is not safe, it's dangerous, and it's not comfortable, right? So when we're in the space of expansion, that's when we go, okay, there's some growth happening, there's some momentum happening, and it's okay for me. This is where you want to regulate your nervous system to support you to move forward, right? To move into the stretch of growth. And this is the thing that a lot of people don't talk about, is that creative energy is just as full of tension as staying in the known. When you're staying stuck in the known, you are in psychological tension. And you're in a space where it feels painful, but it feels painful in the known. And the nervous system would prefer that than the pain or the stretch or the tension of the creative version of you that's moving into something that's unknown, right? The other part, so number 2, you don't outgrow problems, you actually outgrow your tolerance for them, right? So growth isn't about fixing everything. It's about reaching the point where your soul can feel the misalignment of what's going on for you and can't handle it anymore, right? So this is part of growth, is when you just can't stand to be in the same position, the same relationships. You know, there's nothing new that is everything that you're doing is holding you back, and you know it, because your soul is saying, I can't handle this anymore. Now, I've actually been in this situation many times, because growth for me is definitely part of who I am. I'm totally fine with change, and there's been times, like I remember the first time when I separated from my first partner, and I look back and I'm like, wow, I was so young and naive. How did I get the balls to change and to move and to grow? And when I look back and reflect on it, it was because the pain of staying was more challenging than the unknown and the pain of moving forward, because I just couldn't handle any longer being in the same position, being in the same dysfunction, feeling like emotionally drained, feeling like, being gaslighted all the time. My soul knew there was something more for me, and I pushed through the pain of separation, right, of moving away, to find that, to go into that frontier, to explore what was possible. And I've done that a few times actually through my life, where the pain of staying the same definitely is worse than the fear of the unknown. So as I go through these, I'd love for you just to sit and reflect. Sometimes it's nice to even have a journal and write these things down and reflect on them afterwards. Take that moment to pause, spend some time, just going through what it feels like for you in the growth of who you are at the moment, especially where we're at with, the 9-year cycle finishing. How do you feel about growth, right? Ask that question to yourself. How does my nervous system feel? How does my body feel about growing and expanding and becoming the better version of myself? Because we've all got more to grow into, right? We're all expanding, we're all growing, we're all moving into higher and better versions of ourselves each and every day when we have the intention and the willingness to let go of the things that don't suit and don't feel right anymore, right? So, ready for number three? Number three, this is a big one and it's a bit challenging because growth, when you're moving and growing, it means that you're most likely temporarily being disliked by the people that you used to know, or the people that you know in your immediate circle, right? Because they're often invested in the old you. People like familiarity. People like to hold on to the version of you and the version of them that feels right. Like, this is part of our survival mode. This is the way the reptilian mind works, right? The back of our head, the part of us that stays in patterns of behavior, because we know that when we're in patterns of behavior, we're safe, right? If we stay in the cave, we don't get eaten by the lion outside. So when we're in the same patterns, then people feel comfortable, right? Because then they don't have to change and they can predict who we are, how we're going to behave, how we're going to, what our triggers are potentially, that they're okay with being able to judge you or whatever, because they know that you're going to stay silent about it, or whatever your patterns are. That was my thing, like, I used to agree with the people that put me down, because I'm also a Virgo who is very analytical of myself. And so when someone shares something about me, I still do, right? I take it on and look at it to see the truth of it. And generally, when you're open to expanding and growing, you sort of get, oh yeah, that is true, and sometimes you want to go, that's something that I don't actually like about myself. I can see that is something that is holding me back, but you're doing a personal reflection. It's not anything about the other person. And sometimes it's like, yeah, that's who I am, and I'm not going to change it because I like that part of myself, right? And so this is about self-authority, being able to hold that version of yourself and be able to expand the parts that feel right to you, that you want to explore more of and you want to hold as your truths and your boundaries and your values and morals and all those things. And the parts of you that you can see are reflected from outside of you, they're the parts that, you can get the opportunity to change and to grow and expand into, right? But when you grow and you're in a predictable pattern with somebody, let's say you're in a relationship, maybe it's a friendship or maybe it's a partnership, whatever it might be, when you grow, you actually break unconscious agreements between two people. Because most people benefit from your silence, your softness, right? Or maybe because you're over-functioning and you tend to do everything for everyone, right? But as soon as you see these things and change them, and maybe start speaking your truth, or maybe you're a little bit more forthright and standing up for yourself, maybe you're not over-functioning and you're giving people the space to actually clean up their own space or whatever it might be, when you do that, sometimes you get labeled as selfish or dramatic, or like not caring, all of those things, because people don't necessarily like it when you change, right? Because then they've got it, like, energetically, as soon as you change, it breaks the status quo, and now people, like energetically, it's having to look at their own stuff and maybe even be responsible for their own decisions or their own environment or their own growth, right? And so that can be challenging for people when they're not ready for moving forward and expanding into a higher version of themselves. And so this is where, you know, as you grow, you either bring people with you or they just resonate and, vibrate out of your system, out of your world, because the two cannot harmonize together anymore, right? Number 4. Take a nice deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth, placing your hand on your heart. Number 4 is that growth requires grieving. Every time you level up and become a new version of yourself, you're letting go of things that no longer serve you. To move into a different version of yourself, to expand and grow, means incrementally letting go of things that the old version of you tolerated, accepted, validated. Those parts of you that no longer serve, you've got to let go of them. And if you don't allow the grieving process, right, and honor that part of yourself, even when you're winning, because grief, any cycle has a beginning and an end, and ending means letting go of something, right, to begin a new cycle. And so any grieving, any process requires grieving. And if you don't acknowledge that part, right, if you don't let that part be a natural state of the process, then that unprocessed grief becomes your self-sabotage at the next level. So grieving has two, and maybe I can do grieving as a whole different session, because grieving has its own elements to it. You are either grieving from a place of feeling like a victim and feeling sad, but because you're stuck in the grief, or you're grieving in a healthy way where you're releasing what no longer serves you. You're not holding on to the past anymore, but you're letting your nervous system release it all from the cells at the same time, right? So gratitude and grief are not opposites. They're actually part of the integration process. They're partnered together, because as you expand and grow, you're letting go of something and you're allowing the nervous system to release those things so that you can integrate more fully into that next version of yourself. Number 5. This is where a lot of people get stuck. Growth will always ask you to act before you feel ready. It's a given. When you're ready, never happens, right? Growth is always a stretch. Growth is always tension. Growth is always, it can feel stressful, right? Because you're stepping into the unknown. You're stepping into a new version of something, right? So being ready is a byproduct of the movement. Is not actually a prerequisite. It's waiting to feel ready is how the nervous system um, maintains control so that it can hold you back and keep you safe. So I'll do it when I'm ready is actually even the statement is erroneous because it's designed to keep us all looped in our old patterns and never moving forward into the bigger, better version of who we potentially can be, the best and highest timeline, right? So one of the things most people don't know is that confidence actually happens after you've got the evidence, right? Most of the time, because I've got to tell you, it's a master. You know, people say, I'll believe it when I see it, right? And that is actually really mastery is the other way around. I'll believe it now and then I'll see it later, right? But when we can actually step into our new version of ourselves, say yes to it and make the decision and the commitment first, then the evidence follows from that. The confidence happens after that. So evidence actually only comes from action. When you hear people say, I just need a bit more healing or time or clarity or whatever it means, whatever it is, that all happens after you've made the commitment, not before. So that's the one that trips a lot of people up, because when you're, so many people go, oh, I've got to think about it, right? Or I'm not quite ready. But the truth about real growth and expansion is doing it anyway, is making the decision, making the commitment, stepping forward, taking the action. All of those things is what happens as a, confidence happens afterwards, is moving into that scary thing. That's the thing that will hold you in the pattern of growth rather than the pattern of sabotage and being stuck in old ways. So, number 6, ready for it? Truth bomb. Growth doesn't make life easier. What it does, and especially if you're new to growth, we're all growing, right? If we're not growing, we're dying. And a lot of people are doing that just slowly anyway. But the truth is, life doesn't get easier because you're growing. You become more steadier inside because now you've got this, the nervous system is starting to regulate to the fact that, okay, this is something that she's doing on a regular basis. I'm getting comfortable with the fact that we're moving into things that I don't know. It's much more, what's the word for it? It feels like a little bit more predictable or comfortable for the nervous system, because as you grow, the more you make the decision to grow, as you jump in before you're ready and all of those things, and you say yes to yourself rather than the predictable energy of others, now the nervous system's going, okay, we've done this before. It actually didn't mean that we died. We're still here, so we're going to follow her guidance and we're just going to do it anyway, right? So growth isn't having fewer challenges, which is a lot of things, this is spiritually, we have in the spiritual development community, this thing that, it doesn't feel right, so I'm not going to do it. Well, actually, or if you're having challenges, there's something wrong, right? Like there's a lot of judgment in the spiritual development industry as well, right? Communities, because, oh, look what's going on for her. over there, you know, like she's having all these challenges. Well, challenges are opportunities, right? Now, when you start getting comfortable with change and you start actually being eager for change and welcoming change, then there's less chaos within while you're facing those challenges, right? You become a lot more neutral to those challenges, and you're prepared and ready for them. Your nervous system is not going to, you know, go into fight or flight or freak out or whatever it might do, right? And so as you grow and become more comfortable with change, then the change becomes more predictable. The nervous system starts going, it's okay, and I'm going to sit here and watch, right? I'm going to sit here and watch and see what happens, instead of trying to, you know, push past it and move into, you know, like, I don't want to change and going back into old ways. The nervous system is more open and allowing when you start being comfortable with the challenges that come with growth, right? Now, this is where stepping into your intuition makes a huge difference, because when you're intuitively guided, now it's not just you that's making the change. You are basically following, you know, as I talk about, this is about following the white rabbits and listening to the guidance that your higher self is giving you. Now you're in partnership, right, with that other part of yourself. And the growth is a lot more welcoming, is a lot more not predictable, but it becomes more of an adventure, because you're not doing it just by yourself. You're being guided by that higher version of yourself. And so the change itself has all of these different elements, and this is why most people find it can be, you know, extremely challenging, because generally in society we don't want to change. We want to stay comfortable. We want to listen to our nervous system, and we want to stay in that cave, because we're all being told there's, you know, a lion outside, so we'd rather let somebody else go out and deal with the lion, and we'll sit by the fire and just huddle, right? But that's not where the growth is being able to go outside, have a look around and go, we were being lied to. There isn't any tiger anymore. That's like thousands of years ago. And so we can go out, look at the sun, open up to growth, experience what it feels like. And as I said, it's a stretch. But all of those parts, when you can get comfortable or just even aware, consciously aware of those parts of change, that's when you can start looking at, okay, now I'm aware of all of these things. I'm going to step into my next 9-year cycle, being aware that as I grow, and it's going to be predictable that I'm going to grow if I want to be into the highest timeline, if I'm going to recognize myself as someone that's ascending into the highest version of myself, then growth becomes part of the process. And now it's not something to fear, it's not something to run away from, it's something to run towards, right? It's something to go into the space of, I'm choosing this, I'm choosing to grow, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when, you know, it means that sometimes I might lose people along the way that were holding me in patterns of tolerating things that didn't feel right to me in the first place. So these are all the parts, this expansion, and I wanted to bring that all up as like a prerequisite or a training for moving into what's coming up next week. I think it's on Wednesday next week, is our going through the looking glass, right? A 9-year vision map where we're going to quantum leap into 9 years from now, 2035, and look at what you are doing, who you're with, explore all of the facets of that in your highest timeline. So then we can energetically almost reverse engineer it each year. What did I do to get me to that place? So even if you're not ready, right? If you've been watching this, you'll know that being ready means making the commitment, stepping in, taking action, all of those things. Drop into the comments vision, and we will send you the link for next week so that you can be part of the process, even just for curiosity's sake, right? What am I doing 9 years from now if I was to keep expanding and growing and living outside of my comfort zone and in my growth stage? If I did that continuously for 9 years and expanded more and more and more, where would I be? What would it look like? And who would I be? Who would I have become? So just throw in vision and we will send you the link, and I will catch you next Tuesday. Take care.